Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. I think I'm too hot on my mic, right, Benny? Do I need to pop that back a little bit?
You're always a hot gal anyway. So you're not gonna anticipate that coming out the gates these last almost 20 years. So we're good, though. We're good.
I got the red on, too.
See, more fuel for the fire.
Yeah, because I knew who I was going to be talking with today, right? I knew.
Yeah.
So I get to work with some of the most incredible people, just like you do, Benny. I mean, for those of you that don't know, Benny starts his day like early in the morning, and he runs a series of shows 5 days a week. So it starts like early 6 or 7, and he goes right to, and he runs these shows, and he works with a wide variety of people. And, you know, I get to do that too, especially as we bring people forward on the network. And what I love is I love the way the laws of the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, align things. And that's why today I'm really excited to introduce you to this audience. And I know you've heard them before, but I never miss a show. And joining me here today, relationship experts. I think that's where I get the red on. Relationship experts and power couple, Coach Martez and Woodrina Layton, LPC, joining me here today. Now, let me tell you about them. They have a hit show on the network. It is a show that for me, if you're multitasking and you hear them, what you find yourself doing, you're like multitask, and then one of them will say something, you're like, what? What did Woodrina just say? And here's what I love about today. We're going to be talking about many things, but under the umbrella of a blessed affair, as well as understanding what each of us could learn about ourselves. This is what they do. Learn about ourselves and learn how to rise ourselves up. And understand that when we are in relationship with another, there is an honoring to a process. There's a pathway. There might be destruction followed by forgiveness, or there may be forgiveness followed by destruction. But whatever that is, Coach Martez and Woodrina, they will help you take care of it. You think maybe, oh, I just cheated. Okay, no, don't do anything drastic. Call them, right? That's what you want to do before you, like, first of all, cheat again. But if that's what it is, or you're thinking, I'm not feeling the love. We got to bring Donna Summer back. Well, okay, then you need to Coach Martez Woodrina, right? But whatever you do, this power couple, they're going to come from a place of love, fact, coaching, directness, all in the spirit of keeping you all on track. Welcome to both of you. Welcome to the show. It's exciting to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for that
us.
wonderful introduction, Dr. Pat. We love you.
Yes.
Thank you for having us here.
I gotta tell you, I love the show that you both do. And I love it because, and this is what I want to ask you. I love it because you're real. Like, I just show up. I didn't go to like radio school or journalism school or whatever. I came from the school of life. Here's my question coming out of the gate to you. I know both of you came from the school of life, and I want to ask you, what's the greatest lesson? I want to say it start with Coach Martez Woodrina. Should I do that?
Oh, yes, you should.
Okay. All right. What is the greatest lesson you learned, Coach, from the school of life to bring you here in this very moment?
Wow.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a question.
Wow.
Who knew, right?
Well, no, that's a great question, Dr.
Yeah,
Pat.
it is.
I remember years ago, even when I had failed myself, and one of the things that God had really put in my spirit was never judge what you don't understand. And so for me, one of the things that gives me so much compassion for people, regardless of where you are in your transition, regardless of what you've done, one of the things I realize is just because I may not understand how you got there, or I may not understand your decision in it, what I could do is just take my eyes off of what you've done and just realize you're just in transition.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest lessons is never look down on people, never judge what you don't understand, and just be willing to bring the best out of anyone you meet. And that's the way I live.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are, there's always good in somebody.
This is gonna be so much fun today. This is gonna be. I'm not saying anything because I want to go to Woodrina.
Okay, yeah, because that was good.
Yeah,
So
because go ahead. I got to know from you, like the life lesson. What got you schooled?
Yes, that life lesson that got me schooled. What I learned is grace, walking in daily grace. Because for me, with everything that we've gone through in life, God has shown me so much grace. So from that, I've learned that I have to show others that. I have to walk in that. Because, sometimes I can find myself being hard, on others. So with everything that I've gone through and how God has forgiven me for all of my faults, I've learned that I have to walk in just daily grace, not only with Martez, but even with other people that I meet every day. It's like, just show some grace. Everybody is not going to have a perfect day. You don't know what people are going through. So don't judge, just show some grace.
I'll tell you what, when I put that both together, I think it's powerful because people are really on the edge. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't get an email from somebody that's so over the top on the edge. And, where we go to, if I might piggyback on what you said, is I'm finding if we could learn a little grace, we wouldn't go to blaming people. We wouldn't go to shaming people. I learned a lesson early. I want to just share this with you for a minute. I was always a curious kid. I always had a lot of questions. I didn't have a lot of answers and I stuttered. So you can imagine how long the question took to come out of my mouth, right? But I asked some interesting questions. And to most people, they'd see dumb. And I remember asking, like it was either one of the nuns or I think it was one of the nuns in Catholic boarding school, which I got kicked out of at like 7 years old. But I remember asking the question and I never got an answer. And I said, I don't, why would Jesus go in the desert for 40 days? You know what? I don't understand why he would go in the desert for 40 days. And why did it take him so long to commit himself to God? Like, why did he have to be tempted in the desert for 40 days? I mean, and I remember saying this, and honestly, I remember saying, I don't think he ever went to Bible school. I don't think he knew what he was doing. Now, here's where we are. All of us should be able to ask questions out of our curiosity, because if we don't, and I just gave that, but I've been asking those questions all my life. And to a lot of people, they look at you like, you don't know the answer to that. But here's where I'm coming from with you both. Whether or not I thought 40 days was too long or too short, I really knew I wasn't going to fast for 40 days, but it didn't matter. Or whether I thought that I could talk to my spirit, or whether I thought I could know my heart. I want to know from you both, what is at the core essence of your truth? See, my truth is about a lot of questioning about a lot of things till I get to the point where I can feel it in my heart.
Mhm.
What is the truth in your heart about your vision and your purpose? Because I know you're fired up.
Mhm.
Where does that come from and what is it?
Mhm.
Woodrina, we're going to start with you now, right?
Oh, wow.
It, it's see, God is at our core. God is at my core, and He's at Martez's core too. But basically, the fire from it comes from knowing that this is purpose, knowing that this is something that we're called to do. You know, everything we go through, you go through for a reason. There's purpose in everything we go through. That is something that ever since my, like you said, blessed for ever since the infidelity, that's something that has become true to my life. There is purpose in everything. So for me, it's like, even if it's something bad, it's purpose in it. You can find purpose in it. So basically for me, the fire comes from knowing that God, this is something that God has called me to do. God has called me to strengthen, restore marriages and families. So that's where my passion comes from for what I do. I'm purpose driven.
You think?
Uh,
Look at the three of us, right? Well, anybody ever question? They may not always know where I'm going, but there's nobody going to question that we're like fired up about it. Coach Martez, how about you?
So for me, mine even goes back to my childhood. Of course, like I tell everybody on the show, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up in the hood without a father. The three women that raised me was my mother and both of my grandmothers. So for me, one of the things I always longed for as a child was to have a father and was to have a family. I remember I told my mom young as a kid, I'm gonna get married young, Mom. I'm gonna have a family. It's like family was always something that I longed for. And so for me, at my core, I believe marriage represents who God is or who Christ is. I just believe that. Marriage represents forgiveness. Marriage represents unity. Marriage represents legacy. Marriage represents faith, passion. So for me, I tell people when I hear things through the spirit, I see it through the lens of marriage. I mean, when I read scriptures, most of the scriptures I read I'm gonna read the scripture, but in my mind, it's gonna be filtered through the way this relates to a couple. And so for me, at my core is marriage, is family, and it's understanding that this is a part of God's plan. And I definitely believe that there is a person God has assigned to your life to help you achieve the destiny that He's spoken to you. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe this is the woman that God brought for me. I tell people, I don't believe there's another woman on the planet. And I know we can debate and talk about that. I don't believe there's another woman on the planet that could have walked with me through the sands of pain and suffering that Woodrina has. I believe she was breathed upon to walk with me. I just believe that. And I believe there's a person for every person.
And I love that you brought that up, because that brings us to talking with you all about, the soul connection you have. And like people say, I got to have what they have, right? I got to have. Now, there's a story and a journey that goes along with that, right? But the onset of that, it was your heart that was deeply embedded in a spiritual connection that is soul deep. Right? Not so deep, soul deep. I mean, what was that? Online dating? I'm only kidding. No, seriously. You had to know at some level when you met, right?
That is true. It was more like a spiritual, because like Martez says, God told him that's your wife. See, for me, I knew that he was my husband, because for me, the way I felt about him, I hadn't felt about no other person I had ever met before. And then we shared the same core values as far as God, family, faith. We shared love. We shared the same core values. So those were the things that drew me to him in the beginning. Of course, as we grew in our spiritual walk, we began to learn that we were destiny partners. And, as far as where we are now, just knowing that our where God has taken us, our goals and dreams and purpose is all aligned. But we didn't know that till later on. But when we first met, it was that spiritual connection and those core values.
And I also tell you something funny, Dr. Pat.
Yeah.
Because I joined the military at 18 years old. And so I went to Norfolk, Virginia. The USS John F. Kennedy was my first duty station. Well, Woodrina lived in Norfolk, Virginia, which is the largest naval base in the world. And that place is known, as they would say back then, they would talk about the Navy men. Actually, they used to just call them Navy dogs because you can't trust them. They just gonna do you any type of way. So honestly, when I met Woodrina, it was only like 2 months. I was getting ready to go out to sea. I actually gave her my debit card. I gave her the keys to my new car. And everybody on the ship I was on, which was about 3,000 people on an aircraft carrier. And I used to get joked, you gave her your car keys? Oh my gosh, she's gonna be riding with Jody. You know, because they call Jody the guy that when you went out to sea, your girl will be with. Oh my gosh, she's gonna be with Jody. She gonna take all of your money out your bank account. But I'm just saying, literally at 18 years old, I knew this was a woman that God said she's going to be your wife. So I put my words and I put my faith behind it, because literally she had the keys to my car and she had my debit card she could have really caused some destruction if she really wanted to.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm talking about, because then this leads you to where we are today. And where you are today, and if people don't know this, I want them to know, first of all, you do a show and you bring these conversations, the realness to it, the heart connection, and you don't hold back.
No.
You don't hold back. You talk about your own journey. You talk about your ups, your downs, your sideways. And I think that's what's so important. Woodrina, I want to ask you this too, because it's important for people to know you're just not talking from some book. You didn't pull like a book off the shelf and say, here we are. Right. You went through the ups and downs yourselves, right?
Right.
And the story, A Blessed Affair, right? Be careful. What do you say? Be careful what you
curse.
Be careful what you curse.
Your curse could be your blessing.
So I'm going to ask you, how's that played out in your life?
Oh, the blessed affair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, there's purpose in everything. So, for me, that was a whole shift for me. When we went through the infidelity and healing from the infidelity, it was very emotional. And it's like you said, that's how I got to where I am now. I was looking for someone who was Christian, who had been through what I was going through, who was also a professional. And I called around and I was asking, and I couldn't find nobody with all three. So the Spirit of the Lord said to me, you're to be that person for other people who are going through what you're going through. Like I said, there's purpose in everything. So it turned out to be a blessing, because through all of that pain, our mess turned into our message, and we're here today. But believe you me, it was a lot of pain, but it was a blessing, because my husband turned into the man of God that I was always wanting him to be. Because before then, he'll tell you he was a totally different person, and he made 180-degree turnaround. It was like he changed, and it was for the better. So it turned out to be a blessing in our lives. And that's how I became what I am now, because I went back to school to better equip me to be able to help others through it.
Yeah. And I love that we're talking about this, because you see, each of us, we got bumped up against something. And, when you're bumped up against something, you could either bounce off it and bounce back, right? Or you could bump up against something, like I said before, either the windshield or the bug. Some days you feel like the windshield, some days you feel like the bug. And that's like an old school song, but when you hear it, you're like, wait a minute, okay, I'm feeling a little like the bug in this marriage right now, right? Yeah. And you're like the windshield. I mean, so you're bringing us to the table to understand what truth is. Start with truth. Grace.
Yes.
Forgiveness.
Yes.
Right. if there's an idea in this world that I believe is so greatly misunderstood, I do believe it's forgiveness. And I want to talk with each of you about it, because each of you have had to go down that road. Coach Martez, I want to kick it back to you on this if I could.
Yes.
Forgiveness is completely misunderstood. You know, when you tell a woman that's just been raped, you need to forgive, like without like explaining the nature of it, you're pretty much going to throw something at you.
Right.
But you both have had to go through the fire. That's why we're red today. Because you had to go through that fire.
No, that's so true.
What have you learned from the fire of forgiveness, Coach?
Wow. What have I learned from the fires of forgiveness? That's a great question, Dr. Pat. One of the things I can say I've learned is that God is still faithful. That's one of the things I say. You know, in other words, what I mean is, just because you mess up, it's not like all of a sudden now, because you messed up, you still can't receive something that he's promised you. So in other words, my failure doesn't mean I have to forfeit what he's promised me or what he's blessed me. That's one of the things that I've learned in forgiveness, because before I had the affair and cheated on my wife, that was blessings and promises that I had in my heart. And so what I learned through forgiveness is just because I failed, I don't forfeit those promises. And that was the same thing I talked about in the book. You know, one of the things God said to me was, he simply asked me, can you forgive Woodrina the way that I forgive you? That's all he simply asked me. God just simply said, can you forgive Woodrina the way I forgive you? And so what he was just asking me again is, when you wake up, do you feel guilty? And I'm like, no. Do you feel ashamed? No. Do you feel like what you've done you don't deserve? No, because I know you still love me. So that's something else that I've learned through forgiveness. Forgiveness takes you to a place, like, I know some people may say, man, how can you look at your wife after being with another man and all you see is just love and your future? I say, because what I see is the promise and I don't see the pain. So what forgiveness does, forgiveness allows you to go to a place to where the pain that you've been through, that doesn't necessarily have to stay connected to the promise of your future. So that's for me. I mean, I'm just so thankful that God says, you failed or you messed up, but you don't forfeit what I promised you, because this is what he promised us back in 1991. We just didn't know the journey of what it was going to take to get here.
You know, the declarations of God's promises are so important to keep in the forefront, and we often forget the I am part of the I am.
Yes.
And you know, gosh, my stepmom must be like psychically coming through, because every show I mention my stepmom. So there's obviously something that I'm supposed to hear or change or do whenever she comes through. But she would always say, don't forget, there's always two sides to every coin.
Of course.
Yeah. So growing up, we're just like, whatever you just said. That one, and you make your bed, you sleep in it. We got that one a lot. But from your perspective, Woodrina, there are two sides. I have to tell you, for me, and I want to just hear it from you, forgiving myself, man, I'm still working on that. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and I know that was something that for me was challenging in the beginning. But what I did is I just really studied on it. It's very, when you know, because I know you mentioned earlier, forgiveness can be a challenge for some people, and it can be, but I found it's easier for people who have a God core, because when you're able to really, or either, you know, some type of spiritual core, because when you are able to connect with God, for me, I was able to really study God's grace and be able to receive God's grace. And once I was able to receive God's grace and just see how much he loves me and how forgiving he is towards me, it helped me with forgiving myself. So now it's like, I quickly forgive if I make a mistake, I apologize, I repent, and I forgive myself, because I know God forgives me. So that's really what helps me, just knowing how much he loves me and that he's forgiven me. I'm able to walk in that grace and forgiveness, because they go hand in hand in my
I love that. You remind me of a time when I was into confession. I have a very eclectic background. I've shared some of it, like both the Catholic, the Southern Baptist, and a bunch of other things. But I remember being in confessional one day, and I had to confess something. And I remember sitting in there and saying to the priest after you do your whole confession thing and saying, you know, I have to tell you this, but I got to tell you, I don't think I did anything wrong. And I went through and I said, I've been eating meat on Friday for like years because my stepmama told us they were fried clams, but they were chitlins.
Oh.
And the priest went through and gave me like a ridiculous amount of Hail Marys and Our Fathers, because that's a Catholic religion.
Right.
And I remember him doing that. And I remember saying to him, I'm not doing those. I'm sitting in the little box and he's all done. And I'm like, I didn't know that. I mean, why are you doing that? And I remember having this debate with him about it for like, I mean, the line was forming, and people could hear me, and I'm a kid. And I remember like having this debate with him and not letting him get a word out edgewise. And then I was finished and he said, I didn't give you any penance for that. I gave you penance for the other 10 things you confessed. Let's take a short break. When we come back, what are you harboring? What do you got? What do you got inside of you? What is inside of you that you're not letting your faith, your trust, and your perseverance? What is that inside of you that you're not willing to look at? For the shame, for the pain? And do you realize the impact it has on your life? When we come back, we're going to talk about that in the fabulous book, A Blessed Affair. We're going to talk about the perspective that you can shift. Take some advice from Coach Martez and Woodrina. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to tell you about the Walk for Life. We're going to tell you about how you find out about them, how you listen to them. But think about this now. Something like just inside you, maybe it's like small, but you know you have not forgiven yourself for it. You know it. You know, we're talking right here now. You know, you're feeling it. Like, I bet you're hot flashing out there. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. As I said before, here's what we've got going on. Relationship experts, power couple, Coach Martez and Woodrina Layton, joining me here today. They team up, and what you get when you put them both together is you get a lifetime of knowledge and experience and some skill sets. You know, you get coaching, you get counseling, and what you get is solution. Also, today, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to get a copy of the book, A Blessed Affair. We're going to talk about that. They're like tips to staying married for life. And then we're also going to get some insight on something beautiful they've created, which is the Married for Life walk. But before we do all that, what is the best way for people to find out more about you, how to work with you, and how to get a copy of the book? Who wants to give us that information?
Wait.
Okay, so to work with us, our website is dreambuilderscoaching.net. You also can find us on Facebook. It's Dream Builders Marriage Coaching and Counseling on Facebook. And as far as the book, you can get the book from our website. There's a link on our website to get the book. You can also just Google A Blessed Affair because it's sold on Amazon. Anywhere books are sold, it's sold as well. To get in contact with us, Instagram is at Coach, well, just to connect with us, at Coach Martez on Instagram, at Woodrina Layton on Instagram, on Twitter, at Coach Martez, and then at Woodrina L for me.
Awesome. And tell us about the show.
Oh, our show is the Coach Martez and Woodrina Layton show. It airs at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. And you
accepting love, understanding truth,
and changing your perspective. And you will get tips that you can use in life, you know, with not only in your loving relationship, but even in your relationships with your family and friends. You know, we do know that the information we give out, it can help change your life if you apply it. That's my main thing, applying it. We could give you tools and tips all day, but if you don't apply them, then it's not going to make a difference.
It's not.
Mhm.
And tell us about the walk. If you could give us a little information about the walk and how that was formulated.
So the Married for Life walk was, it started back in 2017 for the first year here in Atlanta, Georgia, but it actually started with the vision that God gave me back in 2007. Basically, when we were working to restore our marriage, God simply said to me, I want you to hold her hand. I want you to talk with her, you know, only talk about things positive, only talk about things that I promise you, and just walk with her and hold her hands every day. So the vision for the Married for Life walk started from that, you know, so we came here to Atlanta. I told people who may be familiar with the group, New Edition of Belle Biv DeVoe. His name is Ronnie DeVoe, him and his wife. I shared with him about the vision. I shared with him about the walk. Next thing I know, he's telling people all everywhere and everything. And so, you know, we started the walk here in Atlanta. Woodrina and I thought we would probably have about 50 couples. We probably had about 350 couples coming from all around the country. And so, but at the Married for Life walk, it's just to remind couples, never give up on the hand that you are holding. Never let go of the hand you're holding. Regardless of what you're facing, you can always overcome. So we bring all couples, all diversities, Black, white, Asian, mixed, all faith, denomination, don't matter what you believe. If you believe in love, you believe in marriage, you believe in family, and you want to stand with other couples, you want to walk with other couples, and you want to let that message be known that we believe in being married for life, this is the group you want to come in. So it's an event. It is a walk event where we do walk for 2 miles, and you do have to hold hands the entire time for the 2-mile walk. So you can't run, you can't jog, you simply want to hold hands, but it's other things that we do that actually still incorporate building love and rebuilding the fire, emotional connection, spiritual connection. And now we're adding a fun component, and we actually have like a night of dancing and comedy. It's just a full weekend of just being with other couples and just enhancing your love relationship. This is our 5th year.
This
that's what I was just going to say. This is the 5th year and going strong, and that's what's so important about it. You know, one of the things I want to say, and just jump right into this, right? And that is, you know, we touched upon the story of Blessed Affair, and we're going to take a journey and talk about some of the key issues that not only you address in the book, but that you address in the work that you do. And the reason that I like bringing it up is for people that don't really have a sense of what this book is about. I mean, let me just share this with people. When you go open the book and you look at the table of contents in the book, you start with the journey that many of us start with, falling in love. But then you waste no time getting to facing the truth, your day of reckoning. And then the key thing here is now you're walking in a place where unforgiveness is not an option. And that is like you said before, that's not just about relationship. That is about life. Unforgiveness is like cyanide. It is like, I didn't even know what to say about it. But how'd you get there, man? Because it is that journey when you can get from unforgiveness to forgiveness. Doesn't that create the bedrock by which you then build upon, Woodrina?
Yes, definitely. Oh, definitely. It definitely does, because without forgiveness, you really can't move forward to building your love and trust in your relationship. You have to be willing to forgive, and to get there, it is a process. It's a process, but it starts with a decision. It starts with you making the choice to forgive. So once you make the choice to forgive, then you can go through the process of forgiveness, because yes, it's a process. It's going to take time. And that goes to all about just really being able to not blame, you know, and to actually start being able to communicate openly and honestly and share your truths with your partner or your spouse. Because once you make that choice, then those are the steps you follow to work towards building that forgiveness in your heart.
I want to read this, Coach, and then you copy. time to put him in a hot seat, right? I want to read this from the book from Martez Layton. It says, it is my prayer as you read the true story of my wife and me, that you will embrace the true meaning of forgiveness in all areas of your life. Remember, it does not matter what a person has done to you in your life that has scared you, but it does matter how you will allow that, that has scarred you. But it does matter how you will allow that scar to impact your future. You allow that scar, regardless of any pain that you have endured. If you would receive Christ's love, change perspective, and forgive, your life will never be the same. Scarred you. I mean, when you hear that word, people feel that. And look at the journey you have gone on, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
No,
you must be made of titanium.
no, that's what Woodrina says, but it is one of those things where we, and I'm just saying this from my Christian belief, we think about when they talk about how the whips that Jesus took on the cross, and he had to bear those whips, he had to bear those wounds there, but those wounds let us know how much he took for us. And so in life, you have to take some scars. And I mean, you're going to go through some things that are really going to hurt, but then you still just have to understand. But sometimes those scars and those pains is for the embellishment of the future of not only myself, but for others. And so, because honestly, if the back of the book, Dr. Pat, we say, what if your wife's affair was the best thing that ever happened in your life? And honestly, for me, if there wasn't infidelity, we would be divorced. The relationship with our children and the way those things are now, and I know a lot of people, you get divorced and you can still have those good relationships, but I'm just saying the things that we're doing right now in our life, without the infidelity, we wouldn't be here. So those scars have purpose, but those scars, if I touch that scar and I just start thinking, that was a lot of pain, but that pain reminds me of the things that I've learned. It reminds me of how much God loves me, because that scar cannot stop me from my future. And that's what it is with everything.
I mean, I get that. I mean, you all, Woodrina, you invite people in this book, before you even get rolling here, you invite them, to literally embrace. And what you say is, I choose to allow my current emotional tragedy to become my emotional triumph. I mean, this is right out of the gate. You just saying to people, say this out loud, folks. I realize during the healing process, there are going to be times of extreme pain, but I'm committed to become the best me and overcoming all the obstacles that are attempting to prevent my inner happiness, joy, and confidence. I will win this battle and be better and no longer bitter.
Yes.
Wow. How many times, Woodrina, have you seen people go through that and transform in front of your eyes?
Oh, yes, many times. Actually, yeah, because we take people through. That's the process that when couples come to us, that's the process we take them through to get them to that point. And like I said, it's much easier when they do have a spiritual core, but that's the process we take them through, because forgiveness is for you. It's to free you. And so you have to look at what you've went through. It's painful, it hurts, but what can I learn from this? What am I supposed to learn from this? What am I taking away from all of this? It may be pain, but it's some good in there that you can take away from it. It's something you can learn from it. And that's what you got to build on and move forward on that.
What do you think, Coach? What do you think is the hardest part of the process? Because I went through the book again, and the things that were really, really hard are less hard for me now. But I think the one thing, there's like one thing everyone has that is their Achilles heel. That's like, oh no, I'm going to do everything you say, but oh, please don't ask me to do that one. Not that one. Okay. What would you say is real stumbling block for some people?
Most of the people, it's always just the thought that you broke the bond that you and them created.
Mm.
So in other words, it's like, which we deal with a lot of times is, when we think about the bond or the circle of trust,
Mhm.
when that's been broken, it's always like, can that be renewed? Or
Mhm.
can it ever be reestablished and be the
Mhm.
same? So it's just the thought of, it's almost as if the person that you were with, they've polluted you or they've poisoned you. And I just don't know if that poison can ever get out of your system. So that's the thought that I know the biggest challenge that
Yeah.
people have is, can we again be one and be a strong bond? That's the biggest, can we do it again?
And how do I know they won't do it
And
again?
how do I know they won't do it again?
Isn't that it? I mean, isn't it that thing? I mean, it could be decades later, right? And you've repaired so many things. And yet, a lot of folks don't think that you can get rid of that feeling. And what you teach is there is a way to do that. There is a way to repair that trust, to close that circle, to build that bond.
Yes.
Woodrina, isn't that exactly like the experience that you talk about in the book and that both of you share with other people now?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it can be rebuilt. It's a process, but that trust can be rebuilt, because you have to realize for that trust to be broken, that means you weren't being truthful. You weren't being your true authentic self with your partner. So basically, in rebuilding that trust, now I'm able to be transparently truthful with you. I'm sharing my truth. I'm a glass house. You can see through me. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm sharing my truth with you. And I believe that you're going to, we're at a point now where you can receive my truth, because we're rebuilding that circle. So yes, it can definitely.
Yeah. And that takes, and that's a place of responsibility that you have to get to in your relationship, to be mature enough to look at yourself and really accept the fact of, I wasn't being all honest. My spouse couldn't be totally honest with me. But now we're at a place where, like you say, we just not so in love, but we're soul in love.
Yes,
and that
exactly.
soul in love is like, you have to go through the doors of transparency to get there.
Yeah.
And so that transparency also involves vulnerability
Yes.
at a whole deeper level. And so once you do that, it's not just a soul connected or soul in love, but it's like you said, we're soul in love. And yeah.
And let's talk about this for a minute, if we could, because there's forgiveness and then there's restoration, as you both talk about. I want to talk about restoration, but we've talked a lot about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not the end all.
That's so true.
People think it's the end. Forgiveness is like maybe someone, but let's talk about the word restoration. I'd like to know from each of you, what does that word come to mean to you, and how does it show up? What are the behavioral things? Linda's my best friend. We've known each other a long time. And one of the things I learned from her is she said, look, people can talk, but I'm watching what you're doing here. I got your eye on what you're doing. Your mouth is going like this, but you're over here and you're doing crazy town. Restoration.
Yes.
That's got to be part of what we're striving for. Woodrina, you want to take that first, and then Coach Martez?
Let him finish.
He's laughing. Look.
Because honestly, with forgiveness, that's one of the steps, is actually setting your boundaries and what you expect to see, the changes that you expect to see happen in the relationship. And that's part of the restoration, because in order for us to really restore this, these are the changes that I need to see. And I'm holding you accountable to these changes. I'm becoming your accountability partner, because yes, that's important, that you have to see that change. That's a part of forgiveness. I have to see that change. I'm still going to forgive you, but as far as the boundaries I'm setting, in order for our relationship to be restored, I have to see those changes that I'm actually expecting you to make.
I love it. No, I love it. And then restoration deals with like a new beginning. So what happens also is, Dr. Pat, is like you said, when we talk about forgiveness, forgiving is forgiving you for what you've done. But now to walk into restoration, there has to be a revision. There has to be a refreshing. There has to be restored. So what was broken has to be restored. So now that takes new thought processes, new ways of thinking, new ways of communicating, new ways of affecting each other, not only from an emotional standpoint, but from an intimate standpoint. So new ways of perspective, everything has to shift. And so I love it when you talk about that, because in restoration, that's walking out now past the forgiving place and seeing things new. So that's why when I see my wife, I don't see a woman who cheated. I don't see a woman who broke my trust. I don't see a woman who did this. I see a woman who's building a future with me, who's building the dream that God has, because what was broken is now restored. But my vision, my perspective, my mindset, my thoughts have all been renewed and restored to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. And let's talk about this. There are faithful behaviors and there are cheating behaviors.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, and I want to break it down to something real simple, right? That may or may not relate to people, but it really talks to trust. Let's talk about this for a minute. Like almost every movie you see where somebody doesn't trust the other person involves a cell phone. I don't care. Every movie you see, it's like they put the cell phone down, go in the bathroom, and then the partner's like, oh, cell phone, picks up the cell. Okay, right? There is so much trust and mistrust on cell phone use. I can't even tell you. I mean, even to the point, like we have basically a no cell phone policy. For our producers, if you have time to be like texting all day long, then like, okay, where's your focus? Right. And so I remember having to put that little guideline in and thinking, oh my God, that is so out of my nature. That is so not like it's not my zodiac sign. It is not me. But why would you enact a policy like that? Or why would you look at your partner and spouse? Why would you have to have an agreement or some guideline about something like that, right? Because you don't trust. You're thinking that thing is sitting over there pinging like 24/7, and it's not talking to you about what the top 10 best pop songs are. That is a fundamental core issue in relationships and in other places. And it divides people. I gave you one example because we only have a few minutes left, but it's a really interesting example. I bet people have said to you, I don't know what's on his cell phone.
Of course.
All the time. But in building trust, you have to be open and that's one thing, like you brought that up, but honestly, that's like one of the first things we put in place with people who are healing from infidelity. Everything has to be open. You have to have each other's passwords, PIN numbers to the cell phone. You have to be able to be open, full access, because if not, there's no way that trust can be rebuilt since you've already broke it. So that's very important, because that's where majority of them start.
Because I mean, as good as the cell phone, as good as the internet is, we also have to be true and understand that's where a lot of temptation begins. That's just the reality of where we are now. That's where a lot of temptation begins.
Yeah. And let's just be really clear. You don't ever want to get caught. If you're in counseling, or if you're working with Coach Martez and Woodrina, you just don't want to have a session where your partner and spouse comes in and says, I found a prepaid phone.
Oh, actually, we've had that.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
No, we've had that.
I know.
No, actually, we've had a spouse come to a session, before we were doing it virtually because of COVID. She came to the session. We were sitting there, put the phone on there, and just said, I would like to know, can you tell me what this is? And it was her husband's prepaid because he had another cell phone. We've had that to happen.
That is an addiction all itself. I mean, it is. I work with women in addiction and recovery, so I understand addiction quite a bit. And I will tell you, it is so addicting that people don't even understand that they are having an intimate relationship by texting.
Right.
They're having an emotional relationship.
That's for real, Dr. Pat.
That is for real.
That's for real.
I hope you do a show talking about those emotional relationships that you don't think you're having through your cell phone.
Look,
Right.
Woodrina's right in
Right.
that.
Because it's no different. It's
It's
emotion,
no different.
It's still infidelity. So
Yeah. Because doesn't it point to, I got to go to this person because I am not getting it out of here.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I have a friend that, their whole company is like no cell phones. And I asked her about that. She says no different than emotional relationship that you have texting. She said, if I've got a team of people that are supposed to be collecting or supposed to be doing something and they're texting, there's something missing in what they're doing. And, in a relationship, that means people are trying to fill a void. But don't you both, in the couple of minutes we have left, don't you help people see that they could fill that void with love, Coach?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. I mean, that's the key to understand. When you have that soulmate, you have what we call that destiny partner. There is purpose, there's relationship, there's connection, there is meaning, there's fulfillment that's actually inside the other person for you. There's definitely that to fill that void. It just begins with going at a deeper level of transparency and vulnerability to be exposed. But once that happens, it's going to be there. That's how the reason we have to work together, which we've done for years. And they say, you don't get tired of working with your wife? I'm like, I don't. I enjoy it.
Saying all the right things today, isn't he?
Yes, he always does that too.
Woodrina, thank you both. Look, I know we got a minute or so left. Please let folks know how to connect with you, how to work with you. Tell them about your upcoming show, which I can't wait till you do that show. But tell us how all of the above, would you?
So if you're interested in working with us, our website is dreambuilderscoaching.net. We're on Facebook, Dream Builders Marriage Coaching and Counseling. Instagram at Coach Martez, at Woodrina Layton. Twitter at Coach Martez, at Woodrina L. And also our show is right here every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Transformation Talk Radio, 2 p.m. Central and 12 p.m. Pacific. The Coach Martez and Woodrina Layton Show, Understanding Truth.
Understanding love, accepting truth, and changing your perspective.
Understanding love, accepting truth, and changing your perspective. Yep, you don't want to miss it because I'm telling you, it's always something good.
Oh my God, it is always something good. And you know what? I never know what it's going to be. Coach, let me ask you this question. What do you both want to leave us with today? What's your personal message here? What do you want to say?
Oh, but then I want to add one thing. And to find out more about the Married for Life Walk is married4lifewalk.com. That's that website to find out more information for that.
And that's coming up in April.
April
22nd and 23rd
of 2022. Yeah.
People can come from all over.
All over. We get couples from all over the country.
No, I just want to say, just don't give up on each other. Just understand there are transitions in marriage, and just like there are different seasons in marriage, but just don't give up on each other, and just know you can always overcome regardless of what you may fear.
That's what I'm talking about. Coach Martez Woodrina, thank you both for all that you do. Thank you all, the best listening audience on the planet.
Thank you.
Don't miss their shows and go back and listen. We'll see you.
All right. Take care.
We'll see y'all in a few.
Okay.